Now, there's still controversy in the Senate. More than a week after the suspension of Senator Abdul Ningi over his allegation that lawmakers padded the 2024 budget with 3 trillion naira. We're joined now by Eseme Eyiboh, who is the special advisor on media and publicity to Senate President Godswill Akpabio. Thank you so much for joining us on News Night.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Yeah, just like we said, this refuses to go away. I mean, Nigerians are asking so many questions. Where do we begin from? I mean, the speed with which the Senate suspended the lawmaker, Abdul Ningi, are you saying that it's been investigated and you're satisfied with the outcome before that suspension happened?
No, clearly, you know, the current Senate, the 10th Senate, is about the most robust in our annals. And the current Senate is populated by senators who are deep in morality and legality. So, and by effect of Section 60 of the Constitution as amended, the two houses, House of Reps and the National Assembly, are empowered to set for itself rules to govern its proceedings. And that is to say that the standing order or the rule book of the Senate or House of Representatives originates from the Constitution and is so empowered. So, now, there are issues of privileges. So, when it comes to issue of discipline, like in this case, is a constitutional issue, because that's where it derives its authority. Now, some people, I heard some arguments. I'm not talking now as a special advisor to the Senate President. I'm talking like a former member of the House of Representatives, an active one for that matter. I was a spokesperson of the House of Reps. So I witnessed severally, not once, not twice, where disciplinary action have to be taken. And if you don't take these actions, if you subdue, you know, the process and procedure of the standing order, you end up inviting institutional anarchy. So the right thing has to be done. People are talking about going to ethics and privileges. But this was a situation that in a session televised by over about six television stations, the critical issue there is that there must be the issue of fair hearing. Was the man heard? Yes, he was heard. Then a member rose under privilege and brought this. That's how the issue came up. It was not in the order.
Was he really given fair hearing, or was he shut down?
No, he was televised. The member came under privilege and brought out the issue. People contributed. And Senator Ningi, I'm not a senator, but I also watched the way you did. But I want to give you the legislative understanding of how it works. He was given opportunity. That's when he rose to speak. He stated that he did not say anything about two budgets. He didn't say this, he didn't say that, and all of that. You heard, he reneged on most of the things he said. He reneged. And what do you understand that to be? That is to mean that he has discounted on what he earlier presented through the BBC, you know, as statements of fact. So, I am saying clearly that if he had the opportunity, when they went to see the Senate President, the Northern Senators Forum, which he was the chairman, they went to see the Senate President. And the Senate President, if there is anything, if it's a product of consultants, bring it. They said, okay, they left. He said, bring it to the floor. That is to promote transparency. Bring it to the floor. Let everybody participate in that discussion. And instead of bringing to the floor, he took it to, he started granting interview to BBC. So what I'm trying to say is that we must encourage at all times the enforcement of rules. If we submerge the issue of the enforcement of rules, we will continue to be populating our institutions with strong men. And before you know it, the institution will not be able to stand on its own anymore, and will all be imperiled.
And you know, the fear here now, the worry here is the spotlight on the National Assembly. Good thing we knew while you were there, you were always speaking up. There is a dearth of information coming from the National Assembly, as it were, at the moment. And Professor Tony Radia wrote about 48 hours ago. I don't know if you saw that piece. And
very interesting.
He was warning the National Assembly that they have to be very careful the way and manner they go about. Because if you recall that back then, one of your colleagues then was suspended on account of what he said was padding of the budget at that point, Abdul Jubril.
Yeah.
And that was a man who was in charge of appropriation. Who else to know better? And now we're getting to see what is happening to Abdul Ningi. What Ngozi is just asked is that after he made his submission, the Senate didn't go into maybe an investigative committee to say, okay, let's now go back to that recording of his with the BBC. But there and there, it would seem as if they wanted to deal with it.
The moment a senator, he rose under privilege and said it. And of course, the privileges of most of the senators were breached. And they went into the committee of the whole. The Senate president came down. He became now the chairman of the committee of committee of the whole. And once that is done, procedures and every other thing has to be followed and engaged to the fullest. But what I want to also let you know here, because of time, is that this thing is becoming a trend. And Nigerians we should stand up to, if we want to promote democracy, we must stand up to kick against it.
What's that?
Now, there are two banana peels in the National Assembly during composition of committees and budget. During Patricia Ete, in my time, they accused her of padding budget. And everybody, NGOs everywhere, they were abusing the woman and all of that. The moment the woman came down, up to today, nobody is talking about which budget was padded. And in any way, a lot of people are talking about padding of budget. What is padding of budget? Budget cannot be padded by the National Assembly because it has the power of the purse. So the executive only bring the estimate, will bring the estimate. After galvanizing the previous budget and the implementation strategies, they will bring it to National Assembly. So if in the opinion of the National Assembly, in this case, by the time the executive was doing it, the thing was, predicated on 800 naira to $1. And by the time that budget was passed, it was December 30th or thereabout. Right. What was the exchange rate? As we speak now, dollar is now 1,005, 1,006. So we should be concerned about how we will be able to fund that budget. I'm not talking about the issue that does not exist. Padding of budget, yes.
So what you're saying is that the National Assembly as a whole just, applies its own discretion to decide
not discretion.
How much?
Not a discretion.
Right.
They have powers. For example, you have 300.
Those powers can be abused.
No, it cannot be abused because the Finance and Appropriation Committees, after talking to all the ministries and Department of Government, they will now come sit back. These committees will sit both in their houses. They'll come together. And then they have what is called harmonization. In the harmonization, there's going to be engagement between the ministries, department and agencies of government, and also the National Assembly. After such engagement, before they arrive on the issue of addition or subtraction.
But there's hardly been any situation where the National Assembly.
I'm sure you are aware.
But, yeah,
I'm sure you are aware that this particular budget, after 20 years, this is the first time capital is in the front
more than yes.
And what does that do? What does it portend? It portends that the government and the National Assembly are conscious to trigger our development strategy.
How do you address the concern that opposition is being shut down in the National Assembly? And again, the courts actually say that the Senate cannot suspend any of its members.
The court couldn't have given such a blanket this thing. In the case of Ningi, right. it couldn't have said so. In every case in the court, there are particulars of claims. So if a particular case has its own particulars of claim, So this one cannot be the same. It can never be the same. But we cannot say, for example, the court will tell you that the political party has a final say on who becomes the candidate of his party. The same court would turn around to say that a particular candidate was not validly elected because at the time of that election, he was not a member of that political party.
Right.
So there are a lot of intrigues in there. But what we are saying clearly here, and I want you to appreciate and take it forward, is that no one person, Senator Godswill Akpabio, for example, even as a chairman of the National Assembly, cannot insert anything into the budget. He cannot. I can tell you that for free. And by the time they say this is what Akpabio put in his constituency, Akpabio is not, Senator Akpabio is not the only person.
They say he got 21 billion.
I want to explain that.
We're out of time. We really have to go.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
We really have to go. I'm hoping we'll have this conversation some other time. But again, it's good to have you on Newsline. Good to see you, and we hope that you come back again.